With all due respect, welcome. Elections tend to be very disruptive. This is not a new one, and it is a feature of elections rather than a bug. All right? As the 22 elections date approaches, Kenya's economy is getting into sharp focus. Obviously, distracted civil service, a government that is heavily invested in the outcome of this next election, and a country that is barely making out of the effects of COVID-19. The question is, have we seen the last of the effects of the economy, all right, on your state of being and everything that in between? Can it get worse than this? With all due respect tonight, we hope to answer that 7 trillion question first. My panel tonight is Joram Mwinamo, management consultant. Karibu to the program.
Thank you.
For the upting time, Wanjiru Gikonyo, coordinator TISA.
Happy to be here.
And for the first time, Tony Watimu, economist, who's been missing in action from this platform. All right.
Thank you.
Welcome. Ladies, gentlemen, the Jubilee is just about to do its final budget reading, if you like, on Thursday. There's obviously expectations. As we don't have expectations because they run the government system. But let me start with you, Wanjiru, because today you also had a very eventful day where you sort of put this citizen manifesto of an economy, how it should look like, right, and that sort of thing. Just to start us off, can our economic situation get any worse than this?
Oh, that's an interesting question, because we are trying to frame our engagement looking at what can be done to improve it. Yes, we are in a bad situation. Even if you look at government's own reports, we are in a bad situation. Partly because, like you said, there's the COVID recovery. And of course, the big question, like you said, the 9 trillion shilling question, or even 11 trillion, depending on who you ask,
right,
is debt and the debt repayments. And if you look at, listen to what Parliament said in their report on debt, on the debt strategy, they said, Kenya is at high risk of fiscal distress because there are heavy payments coming up. So and yet we are continuing on a heavy spending trajectory, and of course now we are suffering the impacts of the Ukraine, the war in Ukraine. So we're not in a good position. Our politicians, unfortunately, like you said, are distracted. They are busy thinking 2022, how to gain power, but what are they going to, what are they competing for? These election promises, who's going to pay for them? So we need a reality check. And I think if you look at the report by the budget committee, yeah, the language is very tempered, but what they were saying really is there is no fiscal room. And we need a reality check. We need to be talking about overhauling the economy, overhauling the key sectors to be able to get out of the debt trap. So yeah, yes, it could get worse. Yeah,
I'll get to this, like what we need to do to fix it. But look at Tony, there's always this question of there's things that happen in government level, policy level, and then there's us, right? People now dealing with, the fuel crisis, and is there a connection to that kind of crisis? And it could get worse in our pockets, in what happens day-to-day life, in our businesses, employment, that sort of thing. Could it get worse? Or we're just possibly saying our own things, and perhaps after August 9th, it could be like kumbaya and we're all happy?
I think it will get worse. That is the sad thing about it. To start, it's a very big problem that we have. And it's something that has been happening for quite a number of years. We've mismanaged our economy for a period of time, as Wanjiru Gikonyo said, about how government has been handling the economy. The biggest difference, so let me start by what is the problem. The biggest difference between Kibaki government and the Jubilee government. The Kibaki government did a very small framework, apart from the economic strategy and recovery and wealth plan, is that when he took over from KANU had a model of borrowing heavily from the local banks. And then that is the main source of revenue, apart from taxation. So that crowded out private sector. There was very little private sector, and there's very little taxation, tax collection. And so when Kibaki came, he changed that government will not be borrowing heavily. We leave that banks should lend to the public. Apart from that, we reformed a little bit of tax collection, And so from giving money to the private sector, there was growth and able to collect more taxes.
Right. So that happens in business, so the business.
Yes, you help the private credit market grow, so business are able to grow.
Right.
Apart from that, he made sure that there was no commercial borrowing in the international market. There was no Eurobond during Kibaki's time. So apart from that, he tried to, the budget deficit that was there, he tried to plug that with selling and disposing public companies on the IPO. So you're raising money from other sources, not taxes, but from other sources to plug in the budget. So when Jubilee government came in, they did the completely opposite of all those three things. That is a problem. So they actually, government is borrowing heavily and they crowded out private sector. Apart from that, went in a heavy borrowing spree in the international market. And the third, under Jubilee government, we've never had any privatization program for the last almost 10 years.
Right.
And so that is the crux of the matter, and that is the difference. So when you're going from that period of time, so we've mishandled the economy for a period of time. And so we get to a point where you have a pandemic. You have a pandemic when you're paying almost 60% of your revenues to debt. At the same time, taxation is not growing. Today, we can talk about tax to GDP ratio. It's going down, which means productivity is going down.
Yeah.
The growth, GDP might be growing, but your taxation is small.
Right.
So it means the economy is not growing with people together. So that is a problem.
So that's where the mismatch. Let me bring Joram, because Joram, yours is again more experiential. You deal with businesses and you help people to try and figure out this mess that you're in for the last 10 years. Yeah. From where you sit, how do you think we are in? What would be sort of your diagnosis of where we are in?
Actually, when I was preparing for this, one of the things I was trying to see is there anything the three of us can say that gives hope to Kenyans? Because everything is pointing in a difficult direction, not just now, but going forward.
Yeah.
And as you said, I deal with a lot of business people. So if we were to take the experience of a business person today, what is he experiencing? He is paying more for fuel. He is paying more for food, more for electricity, despite a promise that was supposed to come down. If he's exchanging the dollar while doing a Kenya shilling to the dollar while doing business, it's a terrible situation. So you find like the entrepreneur or the business person is squeezed from every direction, and when he goes to the bank, he wants to borrow. Who's competing with him? The government. So who's the bank going to lend to the government or the business person? So I find the Kenyan entrepreneur the most squeezed person. Left, right, and center. They were just coming out of COVID, where they had probably seen a drop of up to 80% of their revenues. I think that may have recovered a little bit by like 40% on average. So you're just coming out of a pandemic. You've just tightened your belt. Maybe you've let people go. You're coming out of that. Then we are going into an election. And typically in an election year, everything tends to slow down. People stop making decisions, people stop investing, people wait and see. So I feel like we're in a perfect storm. And then throw on top of that, president decides to go to war, and it affects our commodity prices, affects oil prices. So I do not know of a period in the last 10, 15 years where things have been as crazy as they are today. And part of the other challenge, and people like Tony can tell us, is that it's very difficult to plan because we are not very clear what's our debt repayment schedule like. Can we plan for the next 5 years knowing how much our government is going to pay? They tend to have all these negotiations in the background with their lenders and restructure things. But a year comes and we are very surprised that we are paying now 60% of our budget towards the debt repayment. Next year, is it going to be 70? Is it going to be 80? We don't really know. They signed secretive contracts. So we are in that stage where it's very difficult to plan as a business person to know, what's the outlook going to be like in the next 5 years. Should I save? Should I invest? Should I increase productivity? It's just up there in the air.
You call it a perfect storm. And also, while we're also planning for this program, we really wanted to give Kenya something positive. And so we asked, our team went actually throughout the whole country, tried to find what Kenyans think about this election. I want to play a bit of that before I come back around, because there's us thinking hope, and then there's the real situation on the ground, as they like to say. Situation on the ground is very different. Let's just take a look at this and what Kenyans told us today.
Uchumi umekuwa vibaya. Saa hizi naona watoto ndio tutakatakata, tuwabandike, wapikwe, tuwakule. Maana sasa unga ni bei kali, mafuta nayo kwanza lita moja imefika 350. Hebu niambie ule mtu anaenda pale kwa Asora. Amefanya kazi, amelipwa shilingi 200. Hiyo 200 niambie itatosha na watoto 6. Sasa uchumi, serikali tunawalilia watuwie radhi, chakula angalau wateremshe.
Tuko kwa shida kiuchumi, kwa sababu hali ya maisha imeenda juu sana, na sasa upande wa mafuta na hizi chakula za kawaida kama mambo ya mifugo, chakula kimepanda, kama ni mafuta ya kupikia, hizo vitu zile vitu ambazo huwa tunatumia kawaida zote zimepanda.
Hata unga imepanda, kila kitu, hata wewe unajua. Yani hata watu wa huko watusaidiagi sana, wale tuchagua. Sasa tutabadilisha wengine.
Nchi imekuwa kavu, sasa hatuna la kufanya. Kama sisi tunaomba, tutateseka sana. Hatuna makazi, hatuna chochote cha kujisaidia. Sasa tumeona ubora wetu tuzunguke, tuombe, tutafute chupa tuuze, tupate watoto chakula.
All right, suffice to say we didn't find anything positive. Wanjiru, you operate in this space, I think, more than anyone else on the table. Is there anything really to look forward to as a Kenyan?
Well, like you said, today we had a launch under the Okoa Uchumi campaign. And of course, our platform is a civil society platform that came together because we are concerned about the debt situation. And we were launching a citizens manifesto. And the idea is to frame issues for political parties to kind of tell them, well, these are the issues you need to pay attention to. And of course, in the discourse today, one of the questions we asked is, do our political leaders care? And we had to admit, no, they don't care. But then on the other hand, Kenyans don't press enough, don't push enough.
So what do we do? The politicians don't care, and we also don't care. What do we do?
Well, part of what we were doing today is we said, we have to come together. We have to do the political education. We put together movements, because there are movements of citizens, there are movements of civil society. We have to rediscover Article 3, Article 5, 10 of the Constitution, and really just reclaim our country. The point is, our political leaders get away with bad behavior because, in a way, we let them. We vote, we complain. They figured out these complaints aren't going to take them anywhere. It's not politically expensive to do the right thing or to do the wrong thing. So we need to make it politically expensive. But what hope is there?
Try as you might. I know it's difficult, but try.
Yeah, I prepared some notes. I was like, well,
yeah.
The Treasury tells us that the economy there's been a resurgence of the economy after the COVID period, and it's exceeded the expectation, 7.8% growth as opposed to 6%. But then, despite this good news, we ask, how do you measure growth? What was your baseline, first of all? And then does that growth translate into money into the pockets of Kenyans? Or is it, is it we are borrowing and pumping money into the economy? So inevitably, you're going to see good figures, but it's not translating. So
that's not good news for me.
One of the arguments we've been saying is actually we need to move away from, how we measure development, growth, GDP growth, to development, socio-economic, money in the pockets of Kenyans. So we need to change that. So not good news. The little bit of good news, like I was saying, is that Parliament listened. Parliament this year prepared a debt strategy paper that stands alone from the BPS, and they said the reason they did this is the BPS, which is the annual plan of the national government, has a lot of issues, and the debt strategy paper also has many issues, and they said we want to pay due attention.
So you separate the issues?
That, to my mind, is good news. It is Parliament listening, and they framed the issues very well,
right,
and including the dire predictions. So in a way, good news is recognizing we're in a problem and requiring something be done. But the good news, I think, would end there, because we know parliamentary reports, implementation is not their strong suit.
Yes, I want to finish the good news, because on the break I want to go to the dire situation. So, Tony, do you have some good news?
Not really. I don't know.
Try as
good news as for pastors. I'm not a pastor. I'm an analyst on evidence based.
Yes.
So I'll give what the evidence shows.
And the evidence says that we are in the red.
Yes. There is worse to come, if I was to say that.
Joram.
I think what I'll say is the good thing about an economy is that it has a fairly short feedback cycle. So if wrong decisions are made, we are going to feel the pain almost instantly. It doesn't take like a year or so. So I think finally we are at a space where the country is all on one page, because earlier we would have people, sounding warning signals around, don't borrow, we are borrowing too much, we are borrowing too much. And the citizen, because they are not feeling the pain, could ignore it. But now that everyone is feeling the pain, everyone is sitting up and saying there's a problem. Sadly, it's happening when we just have an election. So I don't know if that pain will drive how people make their decisions on who to vote in. But at least we can now finally have the conversation around we need to fix something about the economy.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's the end of the good news. We'll take a short break with all respect. When they come back, it's bad news all the way. With all due respect.
Our global presence, we offer world-class banking services. We support SMEs through the Tony Elumelu Entrepreneurship Program by providing 5,000 USD seed capital and capacity building to young entrepreneurs. Apply today at www.tefconnect.net and visit any UBA bank branch to open an account today.
Wow, ni hao. Mozart wanapeana hao. We, funga mshipi. Alafu wekelea multibet. Wow, ni hao. Na kuna mshindi wa Senke daily
for 30 days.
We, funga mshipi. Alafu wekelea multibet.
Wow, ni hao. Mozart wanapeana 4 bedroom. Hit the longest one multibet daily. Ushinde hao. Kuwa mshindi. Mozart.
Get the latest and credible news on the general elections. Subscribe to the Daily Nation Election News. Send the word election to 20688 and stay informed on coalitions, defections, resignations, election candidates, and many more. Daily Nation. The truth.
All right, with all due respect, the end of good news. On the other side of the show now, to the bad news and the horrible news. So, unless we live on a rock, you know about the situation about our fuel. It's fueled some politics around. And the question about this fuel subsidy that we put together last year in October has brought around this situation. And the whole idea was government trying to sort of cushion Kenyans from, international craziness of the oil prices. From what you see, is this issue really connected to our disconnectedness in terms of governance and structure? Or do we think this fuel crisis is independent of all our problems we have in terms of economic planning and policy?
It's not really independent. I think there is a connection. So we start with it's not really a subsidy. It's actually changed later to a subsidy.
Right.
So what government decided to do is that they decided it's better to intervene because of volatility of prices. Kenyans were complaining that there is a point in time sometimes that the palm prices fluctuates, and so the consequences are very high when it fluctuates very high. And so government decided to come with a program called stabilization program. So the stabilization program was through government setting up a it's called Petroleum Stabilization Fund, Levy Fund. So how that fund should have worked is that if the palm price today is 100, and then the global markets shift, and there is a drastic increase of probably, let's say, 20 shillings. So the stabilization fund will have been used to bring that cost, not to 120, but to around 110. So there is a gradual increase of prices. So there is no shock to many Kenyans. So that was the plan.
Sounds like a very good idea.
Yes.
On
but
paper.
Now the plan was blown out of the water with what happened with the global prices because of the Ukraine version, Russia invading Ukraine. So the prices shot very high that when government decided to intervene in the stabilization, it couldn't handle. So Kenyans at the same time are asking for a lower price, and so government had to change the program into a subsidy. So a subsidy, basically, you're trying to bring the prices completely down to where Kenyans can afford. And so that is a very expensive exercise that government undertook, and there is no money. So in the first exercise, we finished all the money in the levy. So we need more money from the taxpayers' money. Government today has so much obligations on its plate that it cannot afford a subsidy. Yeah. So that is the problem that we have. But apart from that, let me come to the main issues that is connected. The problem is that it's not the Ukraine problem that we have also. We have an exchange rate problem. So the Russia that came the other day.
Yes.
We've had an exchange problem that the currency of the Kenya shilling at some point was 100 2 years ago. Today we're at 115. So what is the problem there? Mm-hmm. So we have an exchange currency problem that I think maybe I'll discuss it later.
Yeah.
But that is one problem. Even if you remove the Ukraine issue, we will still face the same problem without money for the subsidy.
Okay. Joram, how are business organizing themselves right now with all this volatility? Talk about what Tony's talking about. You're talking about the fuel prices, the volatility of oil prices, government policy and order. Yeah. What you've seen, how are business operating?
I think what I've observed is it's almost as if business people were practicing for now. Because when COVID first hit, a lot of people were forced to take very drastic actions, letting go of rental space, letting go of staff, restructuring how they operate, going, work from home instead of working from an expensive location. So it took about 6 months for people to adjust. And they adjusted, I think, very well, because if you looked at the stats at the time, it's in the first 6 months that you had, the job losses and everything, but there was gradual recovery after that. And so, as we were saying earlier, Kenyans tend to be very adaptive and very resilient. So I find that the business people were quick to adapt and shift their costs to what they could afford. And even when you look at the statistics, the SMEs were beginning to recover, where you see their income growing, they're recovering. Certain sectors that were completely dead are beginning to revive, like hospitality, tourism, travel, and the like. And so in the midst of that recovery, then all these other issues have now happened, which what's now happening is that people have less money to spend because, spending on the essentials, cooking oil, gas, you're literally finishing all your money there. So there's very little to spend on leisure, entertainment, other things that would, spur the economy to grow. So I feel like we've entered a period of stagnation because of post-COVID issues, pre-election issues, and then international geopolitical issues. So, people are trying their best, but it's very difficult. So I do not know that we can predict as fast a recovery as we had thought before, because no one had predicted there was going to be a world war, no one had predicted oil prices were going to go crazy, our currency where it is today. So I think that's going to temper the recovery quite significantly. in the coming months.
Yes, so this Thursday budget is the last one for Jubilee, right. And we are putting all our hopes on it. Obviously, I'm being very optimistic right now, right. But they essentially have to do something that will sort of be like a creative way of fixing what Joram is talking about between now and at least by the time the next government comes in. Is there any wiggle room, would say Jubilee has, knowing our budget conditions and our situation? Is there any wiggle room that people in government and policy watching tonight can do to cushion people in business, cushion Kenyans, until the next guy walks in, imagining he has a magic wand to sort our problems? Okay, well, the words you're using there belong in fairy tales, not in reality. So no, there is no magic wand, and there's no quick fix. We are, like I said, the reality is that we are in a hole. This administration borrowed heavily, expensively, on non-productive projects that also had corruption, in them. So some of them are white elephants, and the debts have to be paid. And those debt repayments, in fact, the debt strategy points them as 2024, 2028, 2048, which is the date the sovereign bonds come due, which are not negotiable. Huh? So the point is, we are in a crisis, and the first point would be acceptance of the same. So has that acceptance happened? No, it hasn't. This administration has not acknowledged it has a problem. And I'm hoping that the political parties that are crafting their manifestos are having the truth told to them that the emperor has been naked for a very long time, and there is no easy way. But if you hear the promises they're making to Kenyans, these kind of funds, yes. Yeah. Bottom up is good. Community-based is an important way of governance. In fact, under devolved government, the foundation is supposed to be, decisions are meant to be made at the level, at the bottom level. But the point is dishing out goodies, which is what Kenyans expect. So there's a bit of a problem here. One, there's a disconnect even within the Kenyan voter who needs projects. Kenyans vote out political leaders who do a lot of legislative work. And if you talk to members of parliament, if you talk to members of parliament, they'll say, yeah, look at that guy. He passed this policy. He was bailed out because they were so busy lobbying at the national level, they didn't do the work on the ground. So expectations of voters are a problem. But then the biggest problem we have, of course, is the budgeted corruption. And if you look at the budget policy statement, and the reviews from civil society and parliamentary budget office point this out, is that the spending priorities of government are not in tandem with a government that's aware it needs to scale back. So the deficit is growing. Expenditure in the OP is growing. Of course, Treasury took over a lot of the large infrastructure projects, the railway projects, that increased allocation. So Treasury use the rationale that they want to spend on high impact projects and in fact scale up expenditure on high impact projects. Some of these high impact projects, like I said, and like we know, and as government Auditor General reports and parliamentary reports have said, these are white elephants, these are corruption-based projects. So the problem we have is that the corruption interests that got us into this mess in the first place are still in our budget. That is our problem. And whatever nice policy statements government may make, the money is allocated towards the budgeted corruption and the debt repayments and the pensions and these other immovable costs. Yeah. So the sufferer is the Kenyan taxpayer and the services, social services that are not going to get the support they need. Yeah. Who's disconnected this? There's this situation that we're in right now that everyone is running away from this sort of economic problem that we've put ourselves into. And the president and his deputy belong to two different camps right now. Yeah. So this mess that we're talking about essentially belongs to no one, right? The deputy says Jubilee failed. No. The president says, No. It can't be that it belongs to no one. We have people in offices that are performing duties every day.
There are people who are making those decisions. There are things that were signed, if it's contracts, they were signed by specific people, office bearers. I think those are people who carry the biggest responsibility, especially if in terms of infrastructure. The Treasury CS is one of the people that will be held accountable for much of the things that occurred within the budget. If it's political accountability, I think the President and his deputy carry that cross. There is no one that has
At the moment, they don't feel... I mean, you've seen all their manifestos and all their, lovely talking points. Neither the president or his deputy actually carry the cross for this economic mess that we're in. Yeah. We're all moving on. We're all projecting to the next thing.
I don't think so. Let me say something that will trigger your mind and many Kenyans. I think something that many people are not discussing, including business journalists. I think we have not seen the worst yet, and the reason is. So let's start with the fuel scenario. The fuel, there is a problem with the exchange rate, as I mentioned.
Yeah.
We are heading into an election. So it means our exchange rate, the currency, the exchange rate between the Kenya shilling and the dollar will be falling. So the Kenya shilling continue losing. During an election period, that always happens. And we are looking at the Kenya shilling might get to 120. But the problem is here. The bottom is about to fall because you have, we for a period of time, we've managed the demand side of the forex market. So let me say this. Today, if you ask somebody who does big business, especially imports, they will tell you that there is a problem in accessing the dollar. There's a dollar shortage. They go to their bank. For somebody who imports, let's say, $1 million worth of goods and wants to buy dollars, the bank will tell him, take 25 today, and then come next week, you'll get 50. Then the other
just like that, yeah.
Just like that. You cannot access that kind of problem. So that problem has been there for a while that no one is talking about. And so it creates a very bad business environment because for an importer, you arrange how you import your products and you arrange your cycle of business cycle.
Yeah.
So any disruption is a cost. And that cost goes to the consumer. So if you imagine if one importer is facing that problem, so put it on a scale of 100 people doing business and they're not able to access the dollar.
Compounds the problem.
Compounds the problem.
Yeah.
And the problem is that the cost of living is about to go higher because of the dollar problem. So the problem is that we are not having, the issue is that within the parameters of the monetary policy, which is under the Central Bank of Kenya, there has been a high-handedness within the FX market, which is the foreign exchange market. I think it has not been allowed to operate the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And as he's speaking, he is also not alluding to the fact that our competitiveness as a country has been eroding. Whereas we were the leading manufacturer and exporter to our neighbors, that has reversed in the last 3 to 4 years, where we are now importing more from Tanzania, Uganda, and not even just food products, but even down to manufactured goods. Our power costs are not competitive. Our logistics costs are extremely high. So there's a lot that's eroding, and if you're even to look at, where the leading lights of the country are, it has everything to do with the fact that businesses are growing outside of Kenya and not within Kenya. So if you look at our businesses that are generating, superior returns, your Equity banks, your Safaricom's and everything, everyone has branches outside Kenya. So they're starting to shield themselves and diversify away from the Kenyan economy, which has just too many things going on and starting to tap into, what's happening out there. Diaspora remittances have kept us going and growing year on year. Foreign direct investments, surprisingly, are growing. If you look at first quarter of this year, Kenyan businesses have raised much more money than ever before. $40 million, $120 million and the like. So there's a lot of positive things happening, but they have nothing to do with that internal environment in the country. It's stuff that's coming from outside, where people still seem to believe in us as a country, and that's what's creating that diversification. But it's not sustainable, as he's saying. If you look at just some of the factors that are underlying our economy, it's not sustainable. If we don't deal with crucial issues internally, again, she mentioned that we tend to be very optimistic people. Can we, for a moment, put the optimism aside and just deal with the brutal facts as they are? Because there's certain things that need to change in terms of how we fundamentally run our economy, so that we can fundamentally sort these issues out and begin to build a foundation of a country that's run well.
Can I add into that? Because I really appreciate hearing this. We've been having conversations with IMF around the fiscal consolidation program for over a year now. And one of the issues we raised, and we have a report on this, was we were concerned about the conditionalities. Because the conditionalities, the exchange rate pegging, just the management of the exchange rate benefits external parties, such as the IMF, who are lending to us. And in fact, we looked at the policies put in place effectively subsidize. It's like exporting our jobs. You're subsidizing. You're subsidizing imports. So this issue of competitiveness is at the center of the fiscal consolidation program, because Kenya signed an agreement with the IMF. Part of the conditionalities is to peg that exchange rate. Our argument to the IMF was, number one, when they were negotiating these conditionalities, they did not have a public participation process. It didn't even go to Parliament. These were discussions that took place between Treasury and the IMF. And at that point, Treasury is on their knees. They will say anything and sign up to anything. So we have the wrong macroeconomic policy. We raised this with the CBK, actually, that I don't know now. Say? I don't know what happens now, because obviously now the shilling is in decline. I'm trying to say we had a very civil conversation. But I think there was a sense where they felt that macroeconomic policy is not a place for public participation. And we were saying anything that affects the public is a space for public participation, especially where public resources are. But the point I was making is, as we come into this reality check, we have to recognize that there are external partners, the international finance institutions,
that are part of this thing now.
That are part of this, that are pulling strings behind the scenes and putting in place conditionalities that suit them and not us. And we need to deal with that. So we need to deal with the structural impediments, the cost of power, looking at, right now we are in a drought. And so agriculture, in fact, is not growing. This was the resilience sector in 2020, and it's stagnant at present. So we need to deal, as we look for solutions, because we have to have solutions. There's no other. I agree with the president on very few things. Very few, because the mess we are in is courtesy of Uhuru Ruto, the Jubilee administration. Bad policies. Competence is a need, and that has been lacking. Leadership is a need. It has also been lacking. Strong words, but it's true. But the one thing I agree is, in a recent statement he made, is there's no other Kenya we are going to. And after 2022, this is still our Kenya.
We'll still be here.
So we'll still be here. We need to come up with solutions, and our political leaders need to give us these solutions.
And so I'm looking at the questions that people are asking, is like, so fine, we're going to this election, and still we have not attached blame to who should be blamed with the economic mess that you are in. Tony, I'm looking at you because you're the bearer of bad news, right?
No, but I wanted to finish
blame is important.
What Joram was saying. Joram actually picked exactly what I was saying. The competitiveness problem is what is reflecting in the exchange rate. And so that's the problem that we'll have going forward. Despite the election, that unless we solve that problem, which is not solved by 3 days or 1 month or 1 year, it will take time to solve that. So that problem will still be there apart from that. About accountability, there is no doubt that the people who should be held accountable, first, starts with Parliament. One of the biggest problems we've had, and the design of the constitution that the constitution that we have currently, is that we separated the executive and the legislature. And we still have a hanger-on from the previous dispensation that the legislature, especially if you come from the ruling party, you are aligned with the executive. And so there has been little accountability on holding the executive to account.
And there's been no accountability.
Yes, completely. And one of the problems is that people have hangers on, I have to protect my president, I have to protect my government. When the oath that parliamentarians took is about holding the executive accountable and being accountable to the Kenyan people. So the interest of the Kenyan people is protected by parliament against the executive. So those are the first bearers of that problem. You go to the executive, who are the implementers of what they've been doing about the policy? I think there is nothing to talk about from there, because it's very clear from every Kenyan, if you ask them, that this government has failed them in a number of ways, especially the management of the economy. I think the government has completely failed, and there is no doubt about that. The bearers of that are the people that were elected in 2013 and 2017 to run government.
Okay, we'll do take a short break. We are not failing on this program. We are doing very well. We're trying to go and pay bills. As you all have heard, the situation is very dire. So we're going to pay bills. With all due respect, we'll be right back.
Teach, inspire, and transform young minds to achieve their fullest potential. Welcome to our Raka campus and also the new campus along Eastern Bypass. Enroll today at Royal Brain School Executive Kindergarten and Primary School, a unique and executive school where the future begins.
Wow, ni hao Mozart wanapeana hao. We, funga mshipi alafu wekelea multibet. Wow, ni hao na kuna mshindi wa Senke daily for 30 days. We, funga mshipi alafu wekelea multibet.
Wow, ni hao Mozart wanapeana 4 bedroom. Hit the longest one multibet daily. Ushinde hao. Kuwa mshindi. Mozart.
Max is such a sweet guy. I don't even know how I ended up being this lucky.
Max is a good guy.
Sorry?
I don't want you getting his life in danger because of this lifestyle of yours.
Nahitaji usaidizi wa kupata miti shamba kwa njia ya dawa ya mapenzi. Ulisema naweka kidogo tu kwenye chakula, sio? Mimi nataka nipende, si eti afe.
Invest in prime plots at Hope Gardens, a mixed-use estate in Vigio along the Thogoto-Mutarakwa Road. 50 by 100 plots in these developed and tranquil estates are selling at a cash offer of 999,000 shillings, and you also have the option of buying in flexible installments.
Come back. With all due respect, we were still on the question of attaching blame and who we need to blame and how we need to blame. And I want to get back to you. And still, Kenyans are asking, and that's a very simple question. All these things have happened in the last 10 years. Yeah. Where do we exactly attach the blame?
Maybe we have a challenge in our understanding of what leadership is. Because when I'm the leader of a ship or the captain of a ship, I'm not going to blame my chef or cook or somebody else for something that's going wrong. It was my responsibility in terms of bringing on board, it was my job to bring on board competent people, people who are ethical, people who would have dealt with the issues on the ground. So I think we need to just be brave enough and say, look, our president needs to accept, blame for a lot of the things, policies they got into that got us into where we are. Deputy president, who's also looking at saving us in the next 10 years, needs to take responsibility. He was part of the policies that were passed. He can't now turn around and say I was not part of anything that happened in the last 10 years that got us to where we are. Parliament itself has passed certain policies, even raising the debt ceiling and all these kind of things.
Consistently. Okay.
Consistently. They were the ones who passed it, and then they sometimes come back shocked. So we ask, when they were passing these laws or, raising the debt ceiling, was it under the influence of something else, or did they really think through, what it is that they were passing?
Yeah.
And then when we go to the executive side, we have the smartest economists and, social scientists and everything working in government. And they advise, you know, their president and their ministers and CSs and everyone. So I look forward to a country where people can say the buck stops with me.
Right.
Because all these things didn't happen by accident. There are no ghosts that came and passed these things, passed projects and did things without feasibility studies that down the line are not paying off the way we thought they would. So we just need to change our culture and start a culture of not saying, what do you want me to do, but rather, the buck stops with me and I'm going to do X, Y, Z to change whatever it is that's in place.
Yeah, and just adding on that, of course, like we were saying during the break, IFIs also bear part of the blame, because under their debt sustainability indicators or whatever, Treasury has been able to massage a lot of figures and wrangle around that.
Been fine
yeah, but exactly, the cheerleaders for more borrowing were the IMF. When Kenyans were shouting, David D actually was being vilified for saying we're in a debt crisis. You know, Tony and other experts were saying we're in a crisis. Back in 2016, 2017, very early days, they were saying, no, our debt is sustainable. So they bear part of the blame. Mm-hmm. How did we get here? We have a problem with how we deal with leadership. Mm-hmm. And I think this problem, you know, it has a political genesis, because obviously when you go back to the 2013 election, there was a big question around leadership integrity. In fact, even preceding 2013, leadership integrity, the chapter 6.
We failed on that in 2013.
We failed in 2013. Our political leaders diluted the act. They removed the provisions, the safeguards. We haven't yet enacted the Campaign Financing Act. The safeguards of Chapter 6 that were supposed to be in law were diluted. Recall clauses were diluted. So the political elite is, in essence, diluted the legal provisions. And then,
would you say just on this point, that we failed to capture the moment in 2013? Because I remember the Supreme Court actually compounding this problem by saying that the voters will reject bad leaders on the ballot, and essentially gave us this sort of free will that we had in that sense. Do we all as a collective fail to capture the moment in 2013?
Well, did we all fail? Obviously, there were failures. And like you said, you brought in the courts. The courts have then since made other rulings, and there's jurisprudence also on leadership, some of which is progressive, some of which is not that progressive. It's a mixed bag. But what we can't escape is the leadership factor. Good leaders make good decisions, bad leaders the contrary. And we have had bad, mediocre leadership, and it looks like we are going to repeat that cycle, because the options we are having are not that tempting.
Yeah.
So the question is, what do we do?
Who elects these good leaders and bad leaders?
Maybe we can focus on some of the good leaders that we've had and say we need more of them. We have people like Kevuda Kibwana. I mean, that's usually Makueni is the first place we go, but there are other county leaders. Even in government, there are some good leaders, but we don't have enough of them. So what some of the things that we need to do, for instance, and we were discussing today under Okoa Uchumi, we want to partner with the Red Card Campaign. The Red Card Campaign in 2017 blacklisted, I think, 20 electoral candidates, and said these people have been cited in the Auditor General report, in various reports for crimes, abuses, violations. Some are sexual offenders, others murderers. Why are they being put on the ballot?
What happened on the ballot?
They didn't. Well, a number of them didn't go through. I think 10 of them managed to go through, and 2 of them were subsequently removed. So what's the point? We are heading towards an election. We need to remind Kenyans. We need to connect the present difficulties with the election decisions that Kenyans make, so that these big rallies we are seeing, and we had Nation telling us these crowds, some are plastic crowds, some are
mostly paid for.
Paid for, quite some are genuine. We need to, despite all of that, populism, we need to help Kenyans link their decision, their voting decision, and their livelihoods, and make them hold to account political leaders and reject them at the ballot. Because you can see IBC, EACC are already playing musical chairs, saying it's not our job to blacklist or, you know.
It's anyone's job, but Tony, to the real of big things as we head towards the end of this program, there's two claims in this election about the economy and what to do with the economy that's still outstanding today. So we start with the Deputy President's claim that between 2013 to 2017, things were perfect and they were working. The problem started in 2018 to 2022 and calls it a handshake government. That's when the problems are compounded. Help us in that claim.
James, I tend to avoid replying to politicians because for them it's fun and games. It's not the reality.
Is there a distinction between 20?
It's not a policy position that they
Yeah,
take.
yeah.
They only say what the gallery wants to hear. And so I tend to avoid. But to answer your question, maybe that's his perspective. And the perspective will be that much of the problems of this borrowing debt and doing big projects and all that was done within the first year. But the consequences moved to the second term.
Okay.
And so the problem is still the same. It's only that there was a cause that was starting in the first term, but the effects were felt in the second term. So the cause and effect might be the true case for him. But the reality is that I think we for the last 10 years, I think we must mismanage our economy. And it's not that the things were good in the first place.
Okay.
I think they got a good economy, and so they took time to make it bad.
They got a good economy, they took time to make
Yes.
it bad. The second claim
Yes.
on the opposition, that they did nothing in the first 5 years other than helping the government to achieve what they need to achieve. And so in essence, they have no responsibility over what happens to the economy.
Let me ask you, when you say opposition, who exactly is opposition? Because in the constitution, there is no opposition.
Okay, so let's say the ODM, which were the majority, or the minority
side
yes,
within
in
parliament.
Yes.
Yes.
Did they play their role, or did they abdicate their role?
I think they played their role within the first term. The second term is when now the minority moved to the majority within parliament. And then part of the majority also became the minority within parliament. But I think they did a good job in the first term in terms of holding the government accountable, especially in parliament. There are quite a number of policies that they fought hard, including the security bill.
But we still borrowed money.
The problem with borrowing money, yes, you hold not the minority side,
Yeah.
but you hold parliament as a whole.
Okay, okay.
Yes.
All right. Joram, for you, the same claims. Because there needs to be clarity, all right, in this sort of political discussion, drawing the line.
Yes.
Is there a difference between 2013, 2017, 2018 to 2022 in terms of policy?
Yes, so I actually predict one of the things which, you know, if our election goes well and we have a winning side and a losing side and people accept that, one of the positive things we can predict is that we will have an opposition. The last 5 years we haven't. The ones before that, there was a semblance of an opposition. And because when they're all in power, and we saw this even in the coalition government when it was Kibaki's time, you tend to have no opposition towards anything that's brought to the table.
Right.
And so that's one positive thing I'm looking forward to. I think if the sides, you know, remain on the opposite sides post-election, we're going to have a very vehement opposition, and hopefully now we can begin to have checks and balances.
There could be a handshake.
There could be a handshake, and
Yes,
that's what
yes,
I'm saying. That
yeah.
you know, if they remain on the opposite sides. But that said, I think Kenyans don't make a link between the leaders they elect and the quality of their lives. And sometimes the problem is that we compare with a terrible past that we came from. We always say Moi's time was, you know, worse. We've come from much worse. But people haven't experienced countries where things actually work, where you can have leaders of integrity, where you can have systems working, where you can have things working, you know, as set out. And that, I think, is our biggest challenge. How do we display to people who've never lived outside this country and seen systems work that things can be better? How do we get them thinking that it's not even so much about my president, it's more about who I vote in as my MCA. I don't just vote in the guy who belongs to the party of the guy at the top. In my ward, we voted in a thug who actually ended up, you know, being incarcerated down the line. Nobody thought it, but just because, you know, he belonged to the party of the leading whatever.
The colours were perfect.
Yeah, they ticked it.
Yeah.
So can we think that guy has access to resources? He oversees a 21 billion shilling Nairobi budget. He holds the governor to account. But we don't even care about that position. Yeah? Forget, you know, the MP and all sorts of. So we need a lot of civic education to understand that as citizens, our choices count. And that if today I wake up and I say, I'm not even voting those 2 guys at the top, there's another 4 candidates that are always there and I'm going to vote for one of them, let that guy hear that. There's a likelihood he might not come back to office and he'll begin to listen to us.
Wanjiru, is there a way we can hold anyone accountable to the mess we've had for the last 10 years? Is there any way,
well, yes.
as we wind down? And
well, yes, the law gives us every basis to do so, whether it's through court action, whether it's mainly probably through the courts, citizen petition, citizen action. So more, it's the culture. Are we willing to stand up and hold our leaders to account? Because there's a funny thing in our culture where Kenyans seem to excuse people for their bad manners and don't like to get to confront.
The late Ken Walibora said, "Mbaya wetu."
Yes,
all right? We will leave us with our thug and our thief.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
You go and fix yours, leave us with ours.
Yes,
right?
and I think the main thing is that as Kenyans, we deserve better. We work hard, we pay heavy taxes. We need to hold our leaders to account. We need to make sure the law works for us. And hopefully it's crunch time. And we need to adopt a culture that is aligned to the Constitution. So what we're saying is we need to change how we've been doing our governance. Our political leaders have not changed their political governance. They have exploited the public finance system to enrich themselves. So I don't think there's a difference between the past 5 years and the recent years. Because the political interests have been able to organize themselves in the PFM with different levels of sophistication. But at the same time, Kenyans have been standing on the sidelines watching. But they're encouraging some encouraging steps. We've seen the Kenya Association of Manufacturers. We've seen the Commission on Revenue Allocation go to court. And we are seeing, you know, these are more conservative bodies that have said, look, we have a constitution that allows us to go to court. We are being violated by our leaders. Let us use the courts. But beyond the courts, I think I agree very much with Joram. Let's use the mechanisms, direct engagement, direct participation, direct accountability. Let's make life very difficult for these guys who steal our money and guys and ladies who steal our money.
All right. Final thoughts, Salim.
Okay.
You're
my final thoughts.
Yes, but you're also a voter, all right? And you're also a voter in these elections.
Yeah.
What are your key things and key themes that you take to this election as a voter with the information that you have?
Okay, so let me say 2 things that as I conclude my remarks. I think the good news has come that I've just came to my mind is that at least we had judiciary shielding us from impunity for all those 10 years that we've been suffering. So that's the good news. The other thing is that you didn't ask me about the budget that is coming up. I think there is a problem that we might be seeing going forward because the next budget will be falling under the transition when the president is leaving. And we're seeing a period that the president might have 4 months within that financial year. And so chances are that the budget that will be coming will be leading to continuation of projects, of finishing the projects of the president that he talks about his legacy and all
until the next one,
which will not be the right way to do because the next government also will need to carry that burden in that financial year. So that is the biggest problem that I'll see in this budget that will be coming. It will be so heavily about physical projects and all that as a legacy of the president, which will not be the case. The things that I carry in this election, I think the main thing is about economy. We'll be looking at somebody who brings a proper plan on what they want to do, turn around the economy. So far, I haven't seen a policy that no one has submitted. This is my policy document that you'll hold me accountable.
You're not going to see any policy. That's vague enough. Joram, 10 seconds. What are we bringing to this election?
For me, I think it just boils down to the citizens. I think we've been through enough election cycles, even under the new constitution, to have a better sense of who a good leader is and who a bad leader is. And so can we take that personal responsibility, scrutinize the people we are going to vote for? I hope that no one of the 6 ballot papers, I hope no one will just do 6-piece, but actually look at, is this person going to bring something to the table? Do they have the values we are looking at? And have the courage that even if you're the only one voting for this person in this whatever, to go ahead and do it, so that you send a message that we are looking for alternative leadership.
10 seconds.
We have an election that's about more of the same on both sides of the big political parties. I think the change factor is going to be the citizens. I agree with Joram there, demanding transparency, demanding accountability, demanding good leadership. So we have to change if we want to see a better life, in the years to come.
Okay. Thank you very much, Tony Watima, economist, Joram Winamo, management consultant, and Wanjiru Gekonyo, national coordinator at TISA. You've all done very well depressing Kenyans tonight. With all due respect. Do have a lovely night. We do this every Tuesday on this program. My name is James Watt.